Does the president have confidence in the director of the Secret Service?
So a couple of things, yes. So the answer is yes, but I do want to say the director is working hard to examine what happened and to ensure protectees have needed security. And she is committed to cooperate fully with the independent review that the president obviously announced and directed to move forward with just a day or so ago. Everything is moving so quickly. The men and women at the Secret Service have a hard job. As you heard the Secretary mention, they work tirelessly every day to protect the president, former presidents, and other people. Their mission is critical, and we need all hands on deck in this moment. Right now, we are focused on getting all the facts so we can get to the bottom of this, of what happened. It is important for the American people to know what happened. That's why the president directed an independent review, direct the independent review, if that's what the president asked for, direct the Secret Service to provide Donald Trump and all other protectees the resources needed to ensure safety, and order the Secret Service to review all security measures for the Republic Convention, which is what you've heard directly from the Secret Service speak to in the past 24 hours or so. But yes, he has confidence.
And does he have confidence in Secretary Mayorkas, obviously, since
Yes.
And does the president have plans, or has he spoken with the family of the man who was killed at the rally?
So you heard me at the top, and you heard the president speak in his Oval Address, and one time before that, obviously, and he gave a heartfelt condolences to Corey's family, and the families obviously who were affected by the horrific shooting on Saturday. And so the president understands loss, obviously, as you all know. He understands what it means to lose someone that you love. Our condolences, our prayers go out to Corey's family. I don't have anything else to add. We want to be really, really mindful and for their privacy, protect and respect for their privacy. I just don't have anything else to add to that.
And then lastly, the president last night said it's time for everyone in the political space to tone it down, to cool the political rhetoric. Does the president regret anything that he has said in the course of this campaign about his Republican rival or anybody else in the political space? Does he plan to adjust his rhetoric, or is it just a call for other people to make changes?
So I want to just be very clear, and you know this. I've been asked about anytime there's violence, sadly, that comes up across the country. The president has always spoken out forcefully against violence, always. Political violence has no place in America. You've heard the president say this. He repeated his thoughts in the Oval Address last night. He repeated his thoughts multiple times before then, and obviously throughout his presidency, throughout his entire career. We want to make sure that we are not politicizing this at this moment. It is not a time to do that. We want to make sure that we bring Americans together. When you think about why the president ran in 2020, the cornerstone of his presidency is uniting this country. And he also said that it is okay to have disagreements on agendas. It is okay to have disagreements on character or record, but we cannot have violence in this country, and that is something that he's going to continue to be very, very clear about.
Does he or does he not regret anything that he has said about former President Trump or any of his other political rivals?
What I will say is the president has forcefully spoken out against violence. That is something that he has done over and over again, and he believes that he feels strongly about the stakes of this campaign. He feels very, very strongly about that. He wants to bring the temperature down. He wants to lower the temperature. It is important that we do that, and it is a moment that we come together, and that is what this president is all about, and he wants to continue to work on uniting this country. That's what he wants to focus on.
Follow up on that. Just last week in Michigan, President Biden called Trump a threat to this nation. Should we expect that he will not be calling out Trump with that kind of rhetoric going forward?
So what I will say is that it is important, right? We believe it's important to continue to forcefully speak against any type of political violence. That is what the president believes. And we do not want to politicize this moment. Politicizing this moment is unacceptable. We believe, and the president believes, you heard from him in a very clear statement last night about the importance of uniting this country, the importance of continuing to do so, and that we cannot tear America apart to score political points. We cannot do that. And so we don't want to politicize this moment. We want to unite. We want to continue to focus on that, and that's what the president's going to focus on right now.
So will his messaging change this week?
His messaging is going to be really clear. He's going to continue to engage with the American people. That's what you're going to see. in the next upcoming days, upcoming weeks, nothing different than what he's done in the last almost 4 years, and lay out his agenda, highlight his agenda. There are differences. There are differences in our agenda and what Republicans believe, right? There are differences. And that is okay. And it is okay to speak to someone's record and someone's character. But we cannot accept violence. We cannot accept that. And so the president's going to continue to do that, highlight his agenda. It's important for the American people to hear directly from him what he has done the last 3.5 years and how he sees the future of this country. That will not change.
Speaking of that agenda, the president told a group of Democratic lawmakers on the phone this weekend that he has been working with experts on some Supreme Court reforms that he will be unveiling at some point in the future. Can you tell us anything about those reforms, when he might unveil them, and what he is seeking to achieve?
I appreciate the question. I'm not going to get ahead of the president, so I don't have anything to share at this time.
He also said in his press conference last week that he is looking at rent caps. What can you tell us about his policy when it comes to rent caps?
Again, I'm going to let the president speak to that when the time comes. Thanks, JJ.
To follow up again on the Oval Office address and lowering the temperature,
Yeah.
does the president want to see any concrete actions from former President Donald Trump to show that he too is working to lower the temperature?
I'm going to let the former president speak for himself and move forward with how he wants to move forward with his campaign, with how he sees the country, the future of this country. He has to speak to that. I'm not going to get into that from here.
And is there anything else you can tell us about the call between the president and the former president, what the tone was? Did the race come up at all? Did the former president mention anything about politics, or was it just well wishes?
So, look, I'm going to stick to what we have been able to confirm for all of you. Obviously, the president said this as well, that they spoke on the president said this on Sunday. Yesterday, he spoke with Donald Trump on Saturday. He is sincerely grateful that he is doing well and recovering. He had a good and respectful conversation with him, and that the president and the first lady will continue to keep Mr. Trump and his family in their prayers. I just don't have anything else to add. It was a private conversation, but we were able to confirm to all of you what was put out by the campaign.
Was it a matter of minutes, this phone call? How long was it?
So it happened on Saturday. Don't have a timeline for you. It was a respectful call. It was a good conversation, and the president's going to continue, and the first lady is going to continue to send well wishes.
Does the president feel like this effort to get him to step aside has now fizzled out?
We're not going to politicize this moment. We're just not. The president's going to continue doing what he's been doing for the past couple weeks, for the past 3.5 years, which is going out there, engaging, talking directly to the American people about his record, what he's been able to do on behalf of the American people in the past 3.5 years, the economy, healthcare, continue to expand healthcare, continue to make sure that the wealthy, corporate and billionaires are paying their fair share, and make sure that we're building an economy from the bottom up, middle out. That is what the president's going to focus on. We're not going to politicize this moment.
Lastly, we saw reports that he had met with Chuck Schumer over the weekend. Is that true? Anything you can say about that?
So what I can say about that is that I think Chuck Schumer put out a note on that. It was a good meeting, like the senator said, and I'm not going to read out beyond that. And the president is looking forward to continuing to work with Leader Schumer, continuing to work with Leader Jeffries, in how we can focus on the American people, do the work that we've been able to do, that historic work, building on unprecedented record. That's what the president wants to focus on the American family, the middle class, and that's what I can say about that. Good, Michael. Michael?
Oh, I'm sorry. Senator J.D. Vance, whom Donald Trump has suspected as running mate, put out a message on social media Saturday, about 2 hours after the shooting, blaming President Biden's rhetoric for the shooting. In fact, he said that rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. What's your response?
I mean, I've kind of gotten this question in many different ways. I'm not going to politicize this moment. We are not going to politicize this moment. It is wrong to politicize this moment. We have been, very clear on how sick. The president said this word. Saturday's events were sick. It's not acceptable. Political violence is not acceptable. And we have said that over and over and over again. And we will continue to be very clear about this. We need to lower the temperature. That's what we need to do. Lower the temperature. and unite the country. That's what this president, that's the cornerstone of his presidency, is uniting the country. That's what he wants to do.
Carrie, this assassination attempt happened right after the NATO summit, where the president wants to show the world about the American leadership. Are you concerned this incident may damage America's international image?
Look, it's really repeating what the president said. Now's the time to focus on uniting the country. You heard directly from NATO leaders just last week on how they appreciated and respected the president's leadership, especially over the last 2 years, more than 2 years, as we think about the war in Ukraine because of Russia's aggression, as we see what's happening in the Middle East, and in particular NATO. This is a president that has strengthened NATO and helped to expand NATO. And so that's what you saw from the leaders, that's what you heard from the leaders, and that's what you saw from this president, obviously, in his term here at the White House. We're going to continue to hear directly from the president. We got to lower the temperature. We got to unite the country. That's what the president's going to continue to focus on. Okay.
Thank you so much. Have the tragic events of this weekend shifted the president's sense of urgency or position on gun control legislation? And then secondly, there's been a lot of right-wing chatter about the female agents guarding the former president, specifically whether women are up to the job. People are noting that they're smaller, that they weren't able to cover the president, but I mean, this is a talking point that is circulating. So what's your response?
That's ridiculous. To your second question, obviously, it's ridiculous. Not to your question. I understand why you're asking the question. The sentiments coming from that about women and not being able to do the job, that's ridiculous. Just to be really clear about that. And look, you heard from the secretary. These men and women put their lives on the line. What they're doing is brave. And we should not discount that. We should not discount that if it's a man or if it's a woman. And to have that sentiment out there is unfair and it's ridiculous. Now, to step back, there's going to be an independent review here. This is something that the president directed and asked for. We got to get to the bottom of this, of what happened. And the American people deserve an answer, and that's what the president wants to see. And so getting into these types of speculation is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. Oh, yes. Look, the president has been obviously a strong advocate on gun control. He has been throughout his career as a senator, as vice president, and now as president. As you know, we were able to get a bipartisan legislation done, the first bipartisan legislation to deal with gun control that we hadn't seen in about 30 years. And the president led on that effort and was able to get that done. There's a lot more work that we need to do. That is on Congress. We have to continue to get Congress to ban assault weapons, for example, and to do a lot more. The president has signed more than 24 executive actions because we understand and he knows that guns are an epidemic sadly in our country. It is an epidemic. The number one killer of our children is guns. And that should not be. That should not be. And so the president's going to continue to be steadfast on this. We have the White House Office for Gun Prevention, which the vice president leads on. That is something that was created here in this White House, never existed before. And that shows the president's commitment on dealing with this epidemic. Okay.
And speaking of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, in the past when there's been mass shootings or casualty incidents with gun violence, they've sent resources and had folks on the ground. Are there any plans to do that for the folks?
So right now, as you know, it's an FBI investigation, so they got to get to the bottom of it and see what occurred and see what happened and get answers to that. I don't have any information at this time on how the White House Office of Gun Prevention is assisting in the families and obviously the folks who attended. I would have to speak to them directly about that. But we need to get to the bottom of this. That's why there's an independent investigation. That's why we brought the secretary here to answer your questions, to be as transparent as we can be at this time. We got to let the investigation move forward, but it's important to do that. And hopefully we'll have more to share with you on your question. Okay.
Thank you. Is it the White House counsel's view that the Attorney General has the legal authority to appoint special counsels?
Look, if you're speaking to the announcement that came out, I have to refer you to Department of Justice. I don't want to have an opinion from here. Department of Justice is independent. As the president has said, even during his 2020 election, he said that he would want to restore the independence of the Department of Justice. He's done just that. They make the decision on their cases independently, so that's a question that I would have to refer all of that to Department of Justice. Okay. And Jack,
After
I think
the president paused his campaign events over the weekend, obviously he didn't go to Texas. Now he's heading to Las Vegas this afternoon. Can you give us a preview of what to expect? Are we anticipating a different tone out on the road than we're used to seeing with the president when he's out on the trail?
So as I mentioned a couple times before, and as the president has said, we have differences in our agenda. We do. What we believe is very different than what Republicans believe and how we see the future of this country. And that is important to have differences. It is important. It is okay to have differences. And so he will talk about each of those differences. It is crucial, though. It is important that we bring the temperature down. That's what the president has said. That's what he wants to see. And, he's going to live through those values, and that's what you're going to see. Talk about his agenda, highlight his agenda. That's what you'll see in the next couple of days. Go ahead, Jackie.
Great. Taking another stab at the question you've answered
Yeah.
Several different ways, but I guess more simply, are we going to continue to hear the president in official events or on the campaign trail use the phrase threat to democracy specifically?
I want to be very clear. The president's always going to denounce violence, forcefully denounce it. He's always been against this throughout his career, throughout the last 4 years. We do not want to politicize this. It's unacceptable to do that. That's what the president has said. It is time to bring this country together, to bring American people together. That's what he wants to see. And so that's where I'm going to leave it. He wants to unite this country. And that is something that he's been saying since 2019.
Be really hard to do, though, if you're trying to make a shift away from what has been the platform of this administration, of his campaign, in that the view is that Trump and the MAGA Republican agenda is a threat to democracy. So how do you get that message across while bringing the temperature down? How is that phrasing going to be replaced? Is it going to be replaced?
Well, look, what I can say is this. We have our differences, and it's okay to have our differences. And it is okay to speak to someone's record, to speak to someone's character. That is the difference of, that is important to be able to do, to show, right, what the American people, what you're all about. We're just going to continue to denounce violence. It is important to do that, forcefully be against violence. Political violence has no place in America. It should not be. It does not have a place here. The president's going to continue to be very, very forceful about that. But we have a difference of agenda. That is the truth. That is the truth. And we're going to continue to speak to that difference, and the president's going to highlight his agenda.
Does the president view Trump's agenda as a threat to democracy?
Look, what I will say is right now we're not going to politicize what happened on Saturday. What happened on Saturday was horrific. It was. It was sick, as the president said. And we got to move forward in the way that we respect each other, that we don't have this type of discourse.
Can you bring us inside the room, though, in a way that you're asking to bring down the temperature and have people consider the language that they use in order to dial back where we're at? So how are those discussions going on inside? Is there reflecting on language that's been used? What example is the president setting for others?
Well, I think the president has set an example on Saturday. No, but we can't also discount what's happened in the past 3 days, right? We can't discount what the president did on Saturday, right? We can't. He spoke to the former president. He was briefed by his team. He addressed the American people the same night, right? Came back to D.C. Yesterday, he had another briefing with his team. Right after that briefing, he went into the Roosevelt Room, spoke to the American people, and then used the Oval Office, one of the most important tools to use, important places to give an important address to the American people in prime time on a Sunday. I think that's important. He wanted to make sure that that the American people heard directly from him, from the President of the United States, and also wanted to lay out that we should be able to have differences. Violence shouldn't be part of that, right? He wanted to lay that out and say we have to bring the temperature down. I feel like those 3 moments that we've seen in the last three days shows how the president is moving forward. It does. And it is lowering the temperature, saying violence has no part in our democracy in America, and saying it is okay to have differences. He also said that. He also said it's okay to have differences. Go ahead, Annie.
If we just take Jackie's timeline, the timeline that you just referenced, and move it back to 4 days before today, when the president was in Michigan, he said, over my dead body, it will happen, referring to Trump becoming president. He also said, another 4 years of Trump is deadly serious, deadly serious. And I think that's the type of language that we're referencing here. And would it be possible to get some sort of indication about whether that kind of language is what we'd expect to continue to hear from the president?
So look, what I would refer you to is basically what I told Jackie's the last 3 days. And what the president has said, you heard directly from him, what he's laid out, how he sees the future, how it's important to be able to speak to different agendas. It is important to speak to someone's record, someone's character. Violence has no place in America. Political violence is not okay. It is not. It is just not. The president said what we saw on Saturday was sick. I've said this about 3 times, used that word 3 times in this press briefing. It is not something that we should condone. We have to condemn violence. And that is something that this president has done throughout his career.
And I think we're clear on that. It's just, will the language shift from the president, given
What
what
I
you're
will
talking about?
What I will say is you'll hear the president highlight his agenda over the next couple days. He will continue to do that. He will speak to the importance of the American people understanding the differences of where he stands and where Republicans stand. I got to be mindful here because it is a campaign that we're speaking about. And I think, though, if you look at what the president said, if you heard what the president said the last 3 days, and how he's led this country in this horrific time that we saw coming out of Saturday, I think that's important. And I think that's what the American people want to see. Toning down the rhetoric and condemning violence. I got to wrap it up. Go ahead. I'm being pulled.
Yeah, thanks, Green. So then, given the language from the leader of the free world, how does the president or the administration bear any responsibility for the environment that we're in?
What I will say is, and this is just a repetitive of what I'm saying here, we have to lower the temperature. You heard that from the president. There's no place in America for violence. It is important that we are really clear about that. We do not know. We do not have the answers to what happened on Saturday. What we know is a former president was shot. That is not something that should be accepted here, right? That is something that we have to condemn. That's what we know. There are a lot of questions that are still out there. There are a lot of questions that are still out there, but we have to lower the temperature.
But the president from the Oval Office said we have to look. Yeah, the president from the Oval Office said we have to lower the temperature, but he never said it starts with me.
When it comes to political rhetoric out there, when it comes to being mindful of how we are moving forward with our politics here, it takes all of us to lower that temperature. And I think that's important. That's important to note. Right? And I think that's what the American people want to see. They wanted to hear what the president said in the Oval yesterday. They wanted to hear what the president said on Saturday. Right? It is important to speak to the moment that we're in and say, we got to condemn this type of violence. We do. Now, there are a lot of open questions here. We don't have answers to those open questions. The independent investigation will be thorough. That's what the president wants to see. We want to get to the bottom of it because there are questions that the American people should know as to what happened, what led to that awful, awful night on Saturday. I have to actually, the president is waiting for me, so I have to actually go. I'll see you guys on the road. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.